Hey everyone. So one of my most popular videos, which is kind of a surprise to me, it's loading and unloading a Mossberg 500 and 590 shotgun, has gotten a lot of traction recently. And so just today is March 25th, and there's a lot of 2020, and there's a lot of stuff going on with coronavirus and a lot of fear that I'm noticing, that I'm personally feeling myself, that's happening with society in general. There's a big surge in people who are buying guns for the first time, and there's a lot of people who are like former gun people who are now getting back into it. And there's actually a lot of great videos out there already who have done really spectacular jobs kind of welcoming back, or welcoming in the first place, new gun owners. So I just wanted to kind of drop my 2 cents in that. There's a lot of other great videos out there. There's a lot of great content on YouTube. And for a time when not a lot of people have access to a range, you picked a great time to get into this. So for whatever reason you're doing it, whether you just realize this might just be your last chance to get in there before new laws pass or something, or if you are picking up a gun to potentially protect yourself because you don't know what's going to happen in the future, welcome to the club. And I mean that sincerely, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, or your feelings on that. And by side, it's not just a two-dimensional thing, it's like a big area plot. Wherever you happen to be on that, welcome. A couple of things that I would just want to impart. First off, I'm not a firearms expert. I'm a hobbyist. I never had any formal military training. I've never been a police officer. I am a guy who, at the age of 12, fired my first firearm in Boy Scouts. Then I went a couple of years before I fired a firearm again. And I got into shotgun shooting in high school. And then I went to a pistol and rifle club in college and kind of fell in love with pistol shooting there. And from that point on, I got employed, got out of college, got employed, bought my first pistol. And it's just been kind of a thing ever since. Excuse me. I know everyone's jumpy when people cough. It's the age we would live in now. Anyway, I've got a bunch of stuff down on my feet that I'm going to use as props later on. This video is directed toward people who don't have as much experience with firearms. So if you're following my channel and you have a lot of experience with guns, this might not be the right content for you. This is going to go over some pretty basic stuff. But I just want to make sure that all of those new people out there, or people who are getting back into it, have somewhere to go. So let's get started. Number one, when you're thinking about firearms or about to pick them up, know the firearm safety rules. I'm not going to give you a full version of those. There's a lot of other great content out there on YouTube and in other places that have the firearm safety rules that you can review. This is just my take and my Cliff Notes version, so take it for what it's worth. Number one, treat all guns as if they're loaded. I've also heard this as know your firearm. Know how to operate your firearm. When it comes to treating all guns as if they're loaded, just don't horse around with them. I have 4 firearms down at my feet right now, and I'm going to treat all of them as if they're loaded. They're all pointing in safe directions. I'm not going to be just haphazardly handling them, and I'll use them later in the video. Number 2, and I think this really should be rule number 1, always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction until you're ready to fire. The best way that I heard this described was as a laser beam principle, where if you have a burning hot laser beam coming out of the muzzle of your gun, don't let that like infinitely long lightsaber sweep anything you don't want to cut through. So that includes people, that includes your television set, that includes a thin wall that goes right outside your neighbor's house is on the other end of that. One of the reasons I film videos in my basement, so if you can't tell, this is my basement with a big black screen in the back, is all around me, with the exception of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 small windows, is stone. So anything that I let loose that way will hit a stone wall, and it will deafen me, but it won't do anything bad. My unsafe direction is straight up, and that's where the rest of my house is. Straight down is a concrete floor, and to the side of it is stone. So this is a pretty convenient spot. Obviously, I still have the potential of injuring myself, and that's something I want to avoid as much as possible. You need to remember that as well. This really should be the most important rule. Number 3, keep your finger safe and off the trigger. Number 3, keep your finger safe and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. Here's the first prop. This is unloaded, by the way. Here's a good way to check. If you want to know how to check to see if your firearm's unloaded, check a video how to load and unload a semi-automatic pistol. But anyway, this gun is unloaded. What this means is, you'll notice, I have not put my finger into that trigger guard, other than just showing you right there. My finger is up. Usually it's like up in the ejection port, and it's out of the way. So this means that even though I know the gun's unloaded, I'm going to treat it like it is, and I'm going to keep my finger off the trigger guard, out of the trigger guard until I'm ready to shoot. It doesn't float over, because then I can still kind of reflexively twitch, and it go in there. I just keep it up, and I keep pressure actually up kind of in that ejection port area. If you're left-handed, it'll look like this. That's all. If you don't have this kind of flexibility, just get it as high up as you can. So why do we do this? Well, it doesn't actually take that long. So the gun is cocked right now. I'm in a safe direction, and the gun's unloaded. So I'm intending to fire. This is going to be dry firing. But what that means is it doesn't take that long to go like this. Now, obviously, it's not the best trigger mechanics to slap the trigger like that, but it shows you how quickly, if something goes on, you can actually fire that gun. When you get more advanced, you will be able to do things such as you're drawing out, you can stage the trigger and take up any kind of slack that's in there. But this is kind of a more advanced skill, and you have to be confident. Even if you aren't fully extended and you start staging the trigger, you have to have a good awareness of where your muzzle is pointing, and it still should be pointing in an acceptable direction. So you aren't just like in the process of drawing and staging your trigger here. It's got to be pointed at whatever your target is before you start staging. And that, like I said, comes along with a lot more muzzle awareness and muzzle discipline. So for now, as a beginner, just keep your finger out of there until you're ready for that shot to break. Okay, and number 4, so know your target and what's in front of it and what's behind it. If my target is this nice stone wall over here, I really don't have to worry about what's behind the stone wall, because I know that a 9mm will not go through that stone wall. If, however, my target is a cardboard cutout, or even a piece of, like a person and then a piece of drywall, and I'm loaded with full metal jacket, I have to know that, first off, if I hit my target, if I miss my target, it doesn't matter what I'm loaded with. It's probably going to go through that drywall. Even if it's like a specialty fragmenting round, it's going to go through that drywall and will create danger beyond that point. If, however, I'm loaded with a full metal jacket, it might go through a person's sternum, provided it, misses bone, and even if it hits bone, it can deflect off of it, go through a person's sternum and hit something on the other side. So we have to be aware of this. As a civilian, you still have to be aware of it. And then the other one, what's in front of your target? You might think, well, that's kind of stupid. I know what's in front of my target. So I told you I started shooting shotgun. If you're and I'm going to use a pistol for this. If you're tracking a target, so you're going from one side to another, you do this with shotgun, with tracking birds all the time. You don't want to pull a Dick Cheney and sweep your gun toward a bird, but have complete horse blinders on to that target. It's called target fixation. See the target, see nothing else around you, and then all of a sudden a person is in your crosshairs before you're even paying attention to it. So you got to be careful there. Those are the firearm safety rules. Part 2 coming up. So this is part 2. This is You either are about to choose a firearm or have already chosen a firearm, and this is, what do you do? So here's my advice. Take it for what it's worth. Again, I'm not an expert. Okay, if you already have a firearm and you're worried because the gun stores are sold out of so much stuff and you don't know, whatever you have is probably good enough. What do I mean by that? A lot of people on YouTube, a lot of gun articles, gun magazines, places like that, they're trying to sell you something. I don't have a lot going for me, but I've literally never sold anything because of my channel. I don't intend on ever selling anything because of my channel. I don't care if you have a Ruger 1022 or like a CZ4, whatever the bolt action 22 LR rifle is, which is fantastic, by the way. My brother has one. Or if you have, any kind of modern firearm, and by modern I mean like since the 1940s on.
Get off my lawn.
You're fine. You are absolutely fine. You're armed very well. I've got a Mosin. It's not out here. I've got a Mosin that served. I don't know if it was actually in use, but it was a 1942 date code. So it could have potentially been issued and used in war, which is awesome. But that's what people were armed with, like back in World War II. They're totally viable options for firearms. Of course, there's more modern versions, and those might have benefits, but focus on what you've got. Don't worry too much about what you don't have yet. You don't need a lot to be effective. So that's kind of my piece on that. Okay, so here's number 2, I guess. We'll figure out the numbering later. So here is the next one. Whatever situation, whatever gun you have, also understand your situation, how you expect to most likely use it. Do you live on a ranch in Wyoming and you're likely to be shooting not so much inside your house but around your property? Maybe there's coyotes, maybe there's whatever you got to deal with. Do you live in downtown New York City? Obviously the choice of firearms that you have is limited there, but also what you would be doing with those is limited. Are you defending inside an apartment building? Are you defending inside of a single family home or a duplex? Or are you potentially going to be moving distances with this gun? Is this like a bug out gun? I'm not going to go too much into the philosophy on those things. That doesn't actually interest me that much. It is something I think about, but it doesn't actually interest me too much. But again, it's something that we can consider if that's what you would be interested in doing with it. When it comes to defending your home, what are you comfortable with? Are you someone who's comfortable with a shotgun? I'm very comfortable with the shotgun. This Mossberg 500 is the first firearm that I purchased. I actually still don't own a 22. This is my 22. I grew up shooting shotgun, and it's just it appeals to me. It's more fun. It's more dynamic. There's a lot of motion, and I also just trust it. So I like a shotgun. I'm actually more comfortable with a shotgun than like an AR or some other platform, even though that might be easier to shoot and shoot a lot of. Again, I also really like pistol, and that's nice because I get to carry it. But again, those are just my personal preferences. If you have certain personal preferences, that's fine. It's totally valid, whatever you have. But know the situation in which you might use it for. If I want to defend my home and all I've got is this pistol, it'll work. But again, I have to know what I'm able to do with this versus something like the shotgun that I showed before. Or here's more show and tell. Something like an AR-15. This is the AR that I have set up in my home. I'm not going to deploy this thing right now. You've seen this on the channel if you've seen one other video. But anyway, so this one, although I'm pointing it up, it's a safe direction up. But anyway, so this particular gun is loaded out with a flashlight, a green, there we go, green laser sight. Again, visible laser, because what I'm going to do with it is, visible laser is more important, and I got a nice red dot on there. It's a heavy AR, but this is something that I know will function for me. And that brings me to the next point. After you've chosen your firearm, or it's chosen you, and you've identified the situations in which you're most likely to use this firearm, and you've prepared for those, you've set up whatever kind of other non-firearm related things, outdoor lights, barricades inside your home if you're defending your home, escape plans inside your home if you're defending your home. Once you've set up all of that stuff, or if you're planning on like bugging out, you've got a bag and you've got your kit and whatever else you need for that. Once you've set up all that stuff, the very next thing you need to do is you need to become proficient with whatever you're using. Case in point. So I told you my most watched video was how to load and unload a Mossberg shotgun. This is my 590 Shockwave. You've seen this before. I love this gun. It is fantastic, and it just, oh, it's so comfortable. I love this little boomstick. The problem with it is not an easy gun to shoot. Really, it's not. The 12 gauge version of this with full power, let me show you what I got loaded up in here. These are Remington reduced recoil. These are 16 pellet number 1 buckshot loads. These are fine. These work very well. They're still a beast. On the side saddle, I've got Federal, double aught buck, which is just normal powered buckshot. And if you're not prepared for it, it will knock your teeth out. I've got a video. It's a very short video on my channel of someone shooting this gun. It's like a 16-second video or something, doing trap and skeet. And the second shot, when he actually hits a bird going through the air, he hits himself in the face. I don't point that out in the video, but it's in there. He is an experienced shotgun shooter, and he knew what to expect, and he was just focused on the bird and wasn't paying attention. Got him in the face. It's something that you have to take responsibility for, knowing how to fire that gun. I'm not a fan of the Shockwave when people recommend shooting from the hip. I think that's personally irresponsible. If that's the best way to shoot a gun, get something like this. Shoot it from the shoulder. It's not that big of a deal. Let's just look at the distance on this. I'm about 4 inches from that camera lens here. And I'm about 5 inches from the camera lens here. So, again, know how to use your firearm. Become proficient with it. The red dot on that gun, I've zeroed with like 100 rounds of slugs and birdshot. Birdshot because I wanted to do trap and skeet with it, and it was fun. Slugs because I want to be able to hit a target at 25 yards with the slug, and the denominator on that is not so much the red dot, because the red dot's zeroed, but it's my skill level. And that's why this gun is currently unloaded, and I just put these in for illustrative purposes because this green dot on here I put on, but I have not had a chance to go to the range with it. So this is on. I like dots on shotguns. I'm weird like that. I really would like if this was the ring variety, but I'm not that wealthy. But anyway, if you have a gun and it's not zeroed, or you don't know if it functions with your specific loads, or even if the point of impact with your handgun is not dead on, you need to be responsible. Find a time, go to the range, get to know your firearm intimately. This CC75, for example, I didn't carry for, it was like 2 or 3 years, because I was just carrying another gun And this gun I put an aftermarket spring in, a mainspring, and I had one or two, I think 2 light primer strikes with this gun. So it would go like that, and it would go click instead of bang. And then I would do a tap, rack, get the round out of the chamber, put a new round in, then it would go bang. But then I would put that same round that fell out, that had a light primer strike, back in. It would be fine. That was because the mainspring and all of the kind of geometry just wasn't working with the ammo that I was using. So I didn't have confidence in it. If I were to take this out and I were to be in some kind of bad situation, I don't want a click instead of a bang. I want this thing to be as close to 100% reliable as possible. I want the sights to be set up that if I do my part, the bullet will hit where I want it to hit. If you've got a gun, like I know people, I've heard people say, I always shoot left with my Glock. Fine, adjust the sights so that it's not the best, but adjust the sights so that when you're lined up, you can repeatedly hit a certain thing. I did my most recent video on this, was talking kind of about the same thing, where you need to know what your skill level is with each specific firearm you intend to pick up, potentially in a life-threatening situation. Doesn't mean you always have to be perfect with it. You just have to know what your limits are. If there's a 50-yard shot and I've got this, it depends on the size of the target. So again, get to know yourself, get to know your guns, and get to know your situation. Understand the safety. Understand that whatever you have, you don't have to Gucci it up all crazy. I like to, but again, it's a hobby. Understand the situation and prepare yourself accordingly, and then understand your firearm intimately, and that this little guy is not going to save your life, but it's going to help you save your life.
Well said. Wasn't that well said, Zoe?
Had a kind of poetry to it, sir.
Anyway, this video was kind of rambly. If you like this content, please subscribe. I've had a lot of new subscribers. Thank you all. Stay safe out there. Seriously, we don't know what's going on in the world. But whatever it is taking the world by storm. There is a lot of this, and it's all over the globe. This whole global pandemic thing. So stay safe out there, really. Whether it's the virus or whether it's the people that you're interacting with who are scared of the virus. There's a lot of danger out there, and it's more apparent than ever. Stay safe, everyone. See ya.